Jerwa back again, Floaty Base. Been following along. They've added the cross section here in the Blood Moon test. I was seeing an interesting thing where some of them were running back and forth between the corner pillars, and since I didn't have both sides set up, this would not trigger dart traps. I only had those, or the tripwires this way, not the other direction. Now I've got them both ways, so if anything runs up on this ramp, it should get hit. I did change the relay setup a bit. The wiring is a complete mess. If I was doing it for real, I'd probably move them either up to there or maybe even on the roof and try to wire down through. But these two sides are the same. This is the feed side for the tripwires. Just got power coming off a relay and the tripwire running across. Same thing for here. And on the power side, have the tripwires fed into all the darts, and then up to a relay and across down to the darts on the other side. This is the exact same for the cross section there. I actually did lose a couple of lights screwing around. I guess I should put those back. I ran a test not recorded to see what would happen if this ring, this inner ring here, went all the way around, even if there was nothing on top of it. Just sort of curiosity stuff to see what pathing and logic would do. And it does stop the clumping under a specific pillar, but it also stops them coming up here as nearly as much. So it really spread the damage around quite a lot, which is actually a bad thing because it kept the zombies from coming up here and getting killed as much too. So not a particularly useful thing. In the first Blood Moon test, where this is not a triple, they did break the sheets here and here, and in that test where they went all the way around, they broke the outside ones and not the center ones. So I don't know what AI is going on there, what their goal is, because there wasn't even anything above them. It was literally, just the two plates. This setup, however, all three are structural, since dart traps are structural. This is just some armor on the outside, but again, sheet rotated down and a sheet rotated up makes this a solid block. Two more solid blocks, two more sheets, and then a sheet there means this is in effect a 3-wide pillar that is structural all the way. And of course in my test I was flying around and stuff, and the cops just did a tremendous amount of damage, which is not great. I did load all the dart traps with 1,000 and refuel the generator here just to see sort of what we would get in terms of usage. And I think we have to go to day 21 now. Or 352, so basically unchanged. They all come in from the side. Looks like they're going to come from the mountainside. Yeah, see, before he would have been able to run one of those sides without getting dart trapped, so I'm hoping this will stop some of the ones running up and back too soon, because I don't want them to clump, because that's what causes them to attack pillars. I want to see if this drastic dart trap overkill will kill them fast enough to stop them from clumping up. And then the next thing I would do, is more work, so I haven't done it yet, would be to make this bigger, because this is currently an 11 by 11 outside, 9 by 9 inside. If it was one bigger, 13 by 13, then this center pillar could be bigger as well, 5 by 5 instead of 3 by 3 at the top. And I think that would maybe make enough room that they would not run back because they couldn't find a path. But as you can see, this setup, deals with cops just fine. Mostly you just don't want them to see you. And this is 16 concurrent still, and game stage 350 something is, you know, not very high. But it definitely does seem to be killing them faster, and that certainly helps. It's just one of them running back under one of the pillars is fine. It's when you get 3 or 4 at once, they start to stick. They'll stand under the pillar and start attacking, and you have to do something about that. Yeah, see, like how he ran halfway down and then came back up. I was seeing that quite a lot, and since I only had tripwires across one side, they could run up and down these sides without triggering darts. And I think that's what was causing so many of them to run right back down under a pillar and eventually get stuck there. So far so good. By now we already had sort of a pileup of them stuck under a pillar before. That would seem to be wiping them out faster than it's respawning. And as you can see, it's not super sensitive to me standing out on the edge. I imagine if you did long enough, it would break it. But the reason it's not... Oh, and the cops, of course, would mess you up bad. But the reason it's not super sensitive to that is that... Really? I'd already left, cop. Anyway, the reason it's not super sensitive to that is... Even if you're out on the edge, this center platform is still the best path, even though it's not a real path. So they're still going to come here first, and then recalculate. And the cops are getting a little creative of what they consider they can see. No one's stuck under pillars this time. And the cops are almost as irritating as the vultures. But as you can hear, I mean, the darts only go off when they're up on the ramps anyway. But even standing back here where they're having to run across, they're not just running over here and standing in this corner. They're definitely coming across this platform and getting shot up first. And all this damage is just stupid cops. None of that would be an issue if cops couldn't see me. But even so, this is pretty much minor damage. I mean, like that one's been hit more than once, but none of this is at any risk, and if I stopped letting them see me, it would stop being a problem at all. But we're watching him to see the show. See, like he's gonna do some more damage for me. But having the darts on all sides does limit your own visibility quite a bit. I mean, can't shoot zombies coming from that side nearly as well as I could before the dart trap was there. But you definitely have full visibility of all the columns, and you can defend, you know, really easily. I mean, you don't need a super top-end AK turned into a sniper rifle like I'm using. Even with just a crossbow, especially with explosive bolts, but you can just stand up here and shoot them out from under your pillars if you needed to. Yeah, we just wiped a wave fast enough it's respawning, and maybe we moved up. Yeah, group 2. So we've cleared a group, we're into the second group now. And it's just going to be more of the same. Spiders are a little goofy. The new jumping logic is kind of insane. I mean, like, he was clearing the entire center there, but as soon as he landed, he got hit with some darts and he died. That's all we wanted for him. Like, look at this. What is he doing? Yeah, with the ridiculous number of dart traps crossfiring now. Everyone who comes up to the top gets shot down in no time at all. It's a lovely pile of dead zombies we have going on down there. And you could probably change this to be less overkill or build it up over time. You know, start with only one side with dart traps shooting at head height, because that's going to be your most effective ones. Add the second row to get dogs and crawlers if you for daytime stuff, because this works against the daytime zombies too pretty well. And then, you know, add a second row as you gather resources and get further into the game. This setup is basically halfway to maxed, because you can run the dart traps in quarter rotations now, which means I could also set up banks in the corners. Like you could start with just one at the bottom there, shooting an X across your platform, and I think that'd be pretty effective as well. And this setup here appears to have completely cleared the problem I was having with pathing when I only had 12 dart traps. And I'm not 100% sure if that's simply because of the number of them, because, you know, clearly they're dying up here much more often, which means they run back less, or how much of that is a function of the fact that because, you know, one orientation, just lose a light, but one orientation of the platform down there didn't have tripwires down low, so zombies could run up part of the way and then not get hit by darts. So there were more of them sort of in the outer loop of the pathing rotation, whereas this way, I think that's it. I think we only have normal zombies left. Looks like. Okay, so that's... oh, birds. Saw you. And there's one thing about this setup is that there's nothing up here killing birds. You could put a regular turret on the roof, something like that, just to get rid of these irritants. Because they do also take up a spawn. Like, those are slots out of the 16 that are allowed to be alive. And that was, what, 4? That was, you know, impacting what a zombie wave looked like. Because you don't want to walk in here. So that was a whopping 25 fuel. A lot of entities out here. I don't know. It must just be normal respawns and stuff, since I didn't do a kill all first. So that used, you know, 250-ish darts. And yeah, right now I'm in God mode. We're not interested in anything but the design work. So yeah, these used about 250, about 200, 200. So I mean, it's a lot of darts, but darts are cheap. They take iron. Technically, iron is not renewable, but you get it even just by breaking regular rocks, so it's not hard to get. No damage to the platform. Sorry, the headlamp is being really obnoxious. No damage out here. Damage to the pillar. Damage to the traps. That's probably me. It's a weird damage amount in a weird spot, so it's probably just me. 84, again, probably also me. I don't know. that's cops. Said most of the time when you get damage, at least in my testing of this design so far, my damage is cops. So yeah, that's all cops, and they'll be responsible for more damage than any of the zombies. So yeah, I mean, as far as the columns, the structures are all completely untouched. So I mean, at no point was this base in any danger. Especially since these, all three, are now structural. I've upgraded the plates, again, cop damage, but I've upgraded these sheets to show what I consider structurally important. These are, of course, helping support the center, but they're my backups for if you chop the bottom out of a column. Because if you chop the bottom out of a column, it's actually hanging weight, and the block up there has to support all of the blocks underneath it pulling down, and you don't want that to happen if you can help it, because that you run into the risk of it pulling more of your structure down. Like if you chop all the columns out instead of just the columns falling down like you would expect, it's going to start doing structural calculations up top. So if the top of this pillar was only barely holding on to the sides, then it's fine, because the pillar is basically going to break off. But if that is fine and it turns out like all the blocks around it were weak, that might actually come down and pull the other blocks down with it. Not a good time. Anyway, this design works pretty good. Early game stages, like I said, I don't know how far it will go. I imagine pretty far, because there's a lot of dart traps and they're really effective. I'm probably gonna try making this one bigger, see if it's still structurally sound, if we have any problems because of the concrete. I'm absolutely certain you could make this one bigger and ring with steel blocks. Even if you did concrete inside, if you did the outer ring as steel, the pillars, and then sort of a cross section all the way with steel, I think it'd still be structurally fine. And then this top part, instead of being 3x3, could be 5x5. Which would also mean you could do even more dart traps. You could do, 10 per side instead of 6 like this. And it's just, I mean, it's a pretty simple design. Damage is low, repairs are easy, and your ammo is fuel and iron darts. So that's pretty straightforward. Of course, you can't loot with this design, but the loot's not that great anymore anyway. The other thing I was curious about is I wondered, doing this in reverse, having a floating outer, ring like this with the pillars, but instead of coming up, have this go down. Problem is I don't think you'd be able to get zombies into it as easy. The advantage would be is if you had this go down instead of come up, you could put dart traps, here in the walls. Basically, put a dart trap in the wall, put an iron gate or iron bars in front of it or something to protect it, and then you would have like a constant concentration of fire in the center, and that would keep them, in theory, from coming back out to screw around with your pillars. But either way, this design seems to work pretty good. I may, just for curiosity's sake, bump the game stage up, quite a bit and see what it does. Maybe put one out in the corner, just out of dart trap out in the corners, just out of curiosity to see if that actually works like I expect. There is one little trick I'll show you about designs like this before I go. Your reward for making it this far, if you have, is wiring stuff like this is kind of a serious pain in the butt. So I mentioned it before, but like getting this wire, this wire across here, the distance is fine. This is not too far, obviously, because it's connected. The problem you run into is how do you click this guy and then get over to here to see it, because so you can see it just barely there and it's red, so it won't let you connect. So even though that is a valid wire distance, it won't let you actually do it. And the way you get around that is, like I mentioned in my previous video, you don't actually have to get that interactive, this, like, E to interact or whatever. You can, as long as you, can see the electronic device, you can wire just by clicking, just like I did there. As long as the overall distance is valid, the fact that you're not close enough to interact with that doesn't matter. And Like it's kind of a weird system because, like I said, if you click this and then run over to that one, it's going to go red because you're too far, even though the wire distance is not too far. But this is how I do some of the crazier wiring you see in my designs, and of course it's a little harder now because I did it before that relay was there. But and I mention that because you get into some interesting problems like the center one there. And it's actually easier to do this slightly off-centered, but because the outer one at least you can see, but then that middle one becomes quite a pain. But as you can see, as long as you can see any part of it really, you right click, get your wire, you get to, I mean obviously that's going to break my wire, but you basically do the same thing. You come over here and right click it, sneak around, you can just barely see it there, and then click it there. It's dumb that you have to do that, like I said, because it doesn't actually take the wire distance into account, it takes your distance into account. Like I said, if I come over here it tells me it's red, even though clearly that is a valid connection because it did it. Anywho, that's it for this video.